Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. This is our third PA Gear Up Parent University webinar series, and our topic tonight is building a collaborative education plan. And Brandon Jones, the founder of College Readiness 101, is joining us today to talk about that. We are recording this webinar, so parents and families who are unable to attend this evening still have this valuable resource. And so it will also be available to you to refer to in the future as you like. All webinar series videos will be located on our YouTube channel, but please give us about a week or so in order to get it posted. And I'm just going to put the YouTube channel link in the chat so you have it if you'd like it. The chat is open, and so please, as you have questions throughout, write them in the chat and send them off to the hosts and panelists or everyone, and we'll make sure we answer them as we go or at the end of the webinar. It just depends on what makes sense at the time. At the end of our time together this evening, I'll put a link to a survey to let us know what you thought about this session this evening, and then you can also let us know what additional topics you might be interested in. You'll also receive the survey and the link to the recording in a follow-up email. So Brandon, thank you for joining us this evening to continue our series. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ms. Christie. I really appreciate it. Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be back with you. Forgive me, I'm very interactive, so I'm going to ask you to get ready to put some things in the chat. I want to make sure that you are getting all of your questions answered. And in this session, we are talking about building an educational plan collaboratively with your child. And I like to always start my presentations with some type of motto or some type of saying that can kind of frame our conversations, right? And so the one for today is the best education plans don't come from pressure, they come from conversations. And so I know that there are parents all over the country who are kind of pressuring their child to make a decision or not giving enough pressure, and decisions are being late or not the decisions that you had in mind. And so this whole series this spring has been about collaborating with your child on their post-secondary education plan, okay? So let's go ahead and begin. So again, this presentation is building a collaborative education plan. This is for parents. And I'm excited because whenever I speak with the parents, this is, as I said in our first session, this is where I can impact the most change, right? So I'll work with students for a day or for a session, and they leave and they get busy again, and then they try to go home and regurgitate what they have learned for the day, and oftentimes it's incorrect. So I like to speak with the parents so that we can make the most change in that household. So just a little bit about me. You learned about me on our first session. I'm not important. You don't need to know all that about me, but I have worked with students and their parents to help get them to and through college. That's my role. And as always, my presentations are to be able to have meaningful discussions when you are at home with your child, or if I'm speaking with students, is to have a meaningful discussion at home with your parents, because everything starts with a conversation. So if you would, wherever you are, grab a notes app, grab a pen and paper, because there's going to be some information that we're sharing today. There are going to be a few nuggets to help you along with your journey. And so I just want to make sure that you understand kind of the big concept and those little nuggets that we're going to have today. Before we begin, just a reminder, this is the third of 4 sessions. Our 4th session is going to be the Parent University College Bound Parent Panel. You don't want to miss this one. This is where you're going to want to bring all of your questions. I'm going to bring individuals in from college admissions and recruitment. We're going to bring some people from student affairs and financial aid. We're just going to have a parent panel where you can get all of your questions answered. So you be there. If your children have friends who are serviced by the PA Gear Up program, get their parents here, because this will be the best opportunity for you to specifically get your questions answered by college access professionals. Okay. All right. So for today's session, we're going to explore what you need to know about building a collaborative education plan. We're going to dissect the four components of education planning, and we're going to look at the parent's role and look at some of the common mistakes that we want you to avoid. That's what we'll be doing today. And don't forget, please put information in the chat if you have a question. Myself or Miss Christie will grab it. We'll get those questions answered. You don't have to wait to the end, although we will have a dedicated Q&A session. If it's specific and pertinent to what we're talking about at the moment, feel free to go ahead and put that question in the chat. All right. And as always, in any presentation that I give specifically to the parents, this is a judge-free educational opportunity for you. Some parents are going to be further ahead, some parents may be further behind, but as a cohort of parents, and that's why I like speaking with the parents alone, this is your opportunity to get your questions answered, right? Sometimes parents feel that they should know when they're with their child, right? But this is your opportunity to get your questions answered with your cohort, with your peers for this presentation. All right. So as I usually do, I have a couple of poll questions at the beginning of my presentations. This is the first of 5. So I like to see who's in the room. If you would just get to the chat and please let us know if your child is a senior, junior, sophomore, or freshman. Who do we have in the room today? All right.
We have primarily juniors, so
Okay.
B's, and then there's a couple C's coming in as well. So some
Okay. All right. So
sophomores as
juniors
well.
and sophomores. This is actually perfect, right? That we have sophomore and junior parents because this presentation is actually specifically for kind of like this age group. So I'm really excited about that. All right. Question number 2, poll number 2. Get ready to get back to the chat. Poll number 2. How clear is your child about what they want to do after high school? Parents, where are they in their minds of what they want to do after high school? This is poll question number 2. And it's okay, they'll be all over the place. I'm expecting kind of a plethora of answers here.
We
So where
have,
are they?
yep, we have a couple very clears.
Okay,
We have some ideas, but still exploring. Not
okay,
very clear. Um, yeah, somewhat between
okay.
A and B.
All right, all right. And I'm assuming that we would have some of that. I'm assuming we'd have some of that. I like to ask these questions because I always want parents to understand where they are before we begin a presentation, right? I want you to frame yourself by where you are so that you can receive the information where you need to be, all right? Poll question number 3 of 5. How involved are you currently in planning your child's education or post high school path? So, A, I mostly lead the planning and decisions. B, my child and I plan together. C, my child mostly leads and I support. Or D, we haven't really started planning yet. And that's fine too. We'll start you off today.
So we have a C, a B, a D, a C, a B.
Okay.
So a
All
variety. I
right.
don't see
All
any
right.
A's yet. So, oh, there's an A
There's an A. Okay, we got an A. All right.
and
All
another
right.
B. So,
Since this is like the one that's kind of like the most spread out, this is actually our presentation. Will be working on this as well. I'll make sure I keep in mind that. Question number 4. Question number 4. 4 of 5. Which statement best describes your current approach to education planning? You want your child to follow a clear path. You want to guide your child, but allow some flexibility. You want your child to figure things out independently, or you're still trying to figure out the process yourself. What would you say you are in this one? Which statement best describes your approach to education planning so far?
so we have a D and a couple B's, another
Okay.
B. Let's see, A and B.
Okay. All right. All right. One of the best things that I've learned in education or in life is that the path to success is not straight, right? And so There are some flexibilities that are needed, right? And how you approach it with your child and how your household runs, I'm going to make sure that we can assist you with at least some of the best practices. Okay. And last question, poll question number 5. What is your biggest challenge you face in helping your child plan for the future? Is it for you not knowing all of the options? Number 2, getting your child motivated. Some parents have that as an issue at home. Understanding the college and career process, balance and support, not trying to take over, or you have some financial concerns. Kind of where are you on this one?
So we have financial concerns. Oh, they're just coming in so fast I can't even keep up.
No,
Keeping a
that's good.
child motivated, balance and support, some more financial, B, D, and E, all of them, right? Getting my
That's our
child
focus.
motivated is coming up a couple times, the balancing act. Great.
Okay. All right. So now I know where we are. I saw one that says, can you add 10 Bs? Yes, we'll talk about that as well, about motivating your child. Do not let me get off this presentation without addressing that. All right. So let's go ahead and begin our presentation for today. And I usually like to have some type of saying for you as well, some guidance. You're going to see this slide a few times throughout this presentation. But just so you know, education planning is not about control. It's not about guessing. It's about teaching your child decision making. That's what we're going to be doing right now. Is you and your child going on a journey, and decision making is the number one thing that they need to be able to do as a part of this educational journey. All right. So make sure that is we're making the main thing the main thing. All right. So what families need to understand is that there is no perfect path. Right. Along with that is that your path when you were in school, if you went to school, or your path getting into the workforce or joining the military or whatever your path was, maybe you started a business with entrepreneurship, that may not be your child's path, right? And so there is no perfect path to post-secondary education and post-secondary options. 2, there's no guaranteed outcome. If you are talking with colleges and they are guaranteeing an outcome, I would want you to be a little leery of kind of what they are saying. And then lastly, there will be forks in the road as they progress through their educational journey. I will share a real live example of that in this presentation. All right. All right. Here's a big thing I want you to understand. The number one skill set that students have to master is self-advocacy. The second one is adaptability, right? So one of the biggest mistakes families make in education planning is becoming too rigid on their preferred outcome, right? And what that does is that creates a lot of issues, social and emotional issues that they may have throughout this journey. You want to grow and have your interests change and new opportunities appear along the way. And if your plan needs to be able to be adjusted and revisited and be able to be molded, right? So here's a good example of that, and I'm sure you can attest to this, Ms. Christie. And if any of your parents have any students who are already in college, any older siblings, you may be able to attest to this. One of the biggest examples of this particular concept, I was just working with some students here in the Atlanta area, and they were this young lady was married to a particular college. She couldn't see herself going to any other college. She went on a visit to that college, fell in love. We were going on visits to a lot of colleges here in the state of Georgia. She did not want to go to those visits. She was not interested in any of the other colleges. It so happens that her college, her preferred college, her dream school, deferred her and then waitlisted her. All right. So she will probably not be going to that college. It was a huge hit to her. And so what she had to do was gather herself and be able to go. And we actually just went back over through all the colleges that we had already done, specifically for her. She was able to find a really good option that was a better fit all around. She was going out of state originally. It was going to be more expensive. The program that she was interested in, she can get anywhere, right? So here in the state of Georgia, we have what's called the Hope Scholarship, or the Zell Miller Scholarship. Is a incentive scholarship to be able to keep these students in the state of Georgia. It's merit based, so they have to have a certain GPA and all of that. But it's a better fit, and it's a better fit for her family. But she had a really tough time understanding that her dream college was not the school that she was going to. And to be honest with you, she'll be actually better for it, right? So that's one of the things we have to really work with our students, parents, is to make sure that they are not too rigid in what their plans are. And parents, please do not be too rigid in the plans that you have for your child as well. Okay. All right. So students who help build the plan, and this is why we want to be collaborative. They understand their choices because they've researched it together with you. They take ownership in their decisions, and they adapt when life changes. And that's kind of what this young lady was going to have to do. She's going to have to adapt and change her opportunities, change her mind. It's a paradigm shift, right? It's not a failure that the school she wasn't going to that school. It just was not the best school for her, um, based on a lot of things. But being that they weren't going to accept her through the first options for the incoming freshman, right? And so she couldn't dwell on that. She now has to create opportunities for herself, right? So as a parent, this is what you should be doing collaboratively. What you should be collaborating with your child the entire time so that they can be in a better position. There's an exercise, there's a lesson in the collaboration. Okay. All right. And students are more successful when they understand why they're doing something. So, in education terminology, when teaching a child pedagogy, they don't have to understand why. Right? You're just teaching them. But one of the components of adult education, andragogy, is that you, as an adult, have to understand why you are learning this, right? And that's kind of the transition into adult education, right? And so they now need to understand why they are doing something. Why? How is this connecting to your future? What is the value for this particular thing, right? And so that's one thing I definitely want you parents to understand is not, do it because I said. It's more like this is going to help you. Let's create some opportunities for you, and here are the reasons why you want to do that, right? Um, they'll see how school connects to life, right? They'll be more successful when they feel heard in decisions, right? So some parents will say, "I was a doctor, you're going to be a doctor," right? But maybe that student doesn't want to be a doctor, right? Um, they'll be more successful when they practice making choices early instead of always the putting out the fires kind of situation, and when they are held accountable for their actions or inactions. So, as a parent, your role is to make sure that you are holding your child accountable, make sure that you are collaborating with them, and make sure you are putting a lot of emphasis on the why for them. Okay. Ms. Christie, I don't see any questions yet, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue on.
Yep, I haven't seen any either.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, next, parents. The goal is not to create a perfect plan on day one. Like I said earlier, we want to revisit, refine, and improve over time. That's what we're looking to do on your educational journey. All right. So, since there aren't any questions, the next section of this presentation is going into the 4 parts of planning, education planning. And so we'll break these 4 parts down. So the number 1 is self-discovery. And that's where the student kind of finds out who they are. One of my favorite components is the exploration part. That's one of the biggest things that I do with students is kind of giving them this exploring, trying to find out kind of where they feel comfortable, right? And what's going to be best for them based on who they are. Number 3 is preparation, right? So this is when they start finding out what they need to do in this journey, right? Then lastly is going to be decision making. And that's when they start finding out what's a good fit for them, right? And so these are the 4 parts. We're going to start breaking down these 4 parts, all right?
And Brandon, before you get started, we do have a question in the chat in thinking about maybe this you want to talk about under exploration, but we've always told our kids they have five options and they kind of want to know what your thoughts are. 4-year college, 2-year college, trade or specialty school, military, or full-time job. Is
Yeah.
this okay?
So yeah. So there are in post-secondary education 4 E's, what we call four post-secondary options that you have. The first one is enrollment. That would be that covers your both your 4-year and your 2-year. For that, the second one would be enlistment into the military, any of the branches of the military. Um, the third E would be employment, so joining the workforce in some way, and then the fourth one would be entrepreneurship for those individuals who are looking to kind of start their own thing, right? And so around the country, the 4 E's concept is really going around and understanding how school systems and other organizations are starting to kind of guide students through that high school to post-secondary transition. So the 4 E's is really kind of the new concept that they're working on. But yes, there are options for that. Yep. Yep. All right. So let's break down the 4 parts of planning for you. All right. This is where you're going to try to write some things down. If you got a pen, this is where you're going to write some things out. Your child has to go through these, or you and your child have to go through these 4 parts of planning, right? And the first one was self-discovery. And so what you'll want to do is understand what naturally captures your child's attention and curiosity. What are their interests, right? You want to couple that with what is their aptitude. What are they good at? What are they naturally good at academically? When you put those two things together, that's where you start getting to the sweet spot of what they may want to do in life, right? Then you'll have the goal setting, the goal part of it. I'm going to close out the calendar. So, what are the short term and long term ideas about what your child is looking to achieve? What opportunities would come out of that, right? So, what classes, programs, activities, experiences are available to them? That's kind of the exploring that part. And then, what are the next steps? Understanding what are the immediate actions your child can take now. That is all part of the self discovery component of planning. This is the first step of the 4 steps. So, as a parent, I have a parent note here that you want to ask questions and don't just supply answers to your scholars, right? So, for a lot of their life, you have been their guiding light and giving them answers for whatever it is that they are trying to do or whatever they're interested in or just in life, what they're asking for in life at home, right? But there is a shift that happens through this process. And that self discovery component is a huge component because this is where the scaffolding is going to grow from. So you want to make sure that there is a substantial and robust self discovery option for them. All right. Specifically for those sophomores, right? Because the sophomore year is what they call the lost year. It's the career year. The freshmen get a lot of attention because they're new. The juniors are arguably in the hardest year of high school. The tests are there. Kind of the most difficult classes are generally in your junior year. The seniors are getting a lot of attention because they are getting ready to leave, and there's a lot of attention on making sure they are successfully out of the school. So that sophomore year is kind of that lost year. So this is the year to really dig in to the 4 parts of the education plan. All right. Let's go next to exploration. All right. This is kind of my favorite component because this is where I think that students get that aha. I'm in love. I am addicted to that aha moment. And so when students are visiting campuses or speaking with the recruiter or connecting with a potential hiring manager or learning something, like that's what I like to have the students really go through. And so that's what I work with students here in Atlanta. All right. So parent note, students need exposure, not high parental pressures. And that's a theme of this presentation. You're going to see that a lot. But for exploration in the careers, you want to introduce students to different types of professions so they understand what people actually do. So I have one of the biggest examples, and everybody would understand this. They say, you want to be a nurse. All right, but are you okay with blood? Well, I throw up every time I see blood, right? So maybe nursing isn't for you, right? But they won't know that until they kind of see it. Schools, all right. So you want to help them learn about the different schools. I know there was a question from one of the parents was the 2 year versus the 4 year, the community, the vocational school, the trade schools. This is kind of where I live. This is kind of like where my wheelhouse is as a former college recruiter, and admissions person. This is kind of where my heart lies. Is kind of showing them their options because everybody's not going to a 4 year university, right? Everybody's not going to the flagship school in your state, and there are a lot of, and nor does everybody need to go, right? And so we want to make sure that we are selecting options that are a good fit for your child and for the household as a whole. Skills, right? In exploration, we want to make sure that we are working on those executive functioning skills. We want to find out where their skill sets lie, where their strengths are, right? But that executive functioning, that time management, and being able to speak to somebody and shaking somebody's hand and being able to advocate for themselves. These are things that they'll need to develop, skill sets they'll need to develop. Activities under exploration, right? And so one of the things I try to talk to with parents in regards to extracurricular activities, one of the main questions that I get from parents or students is, should I just be, how should I just do a lot of different things? Does that look good on my college application? And the answer is actually no, right? As a college recruiter, and a lot of the college recruiters who are taking a holistic approach to admissions, where they're looking at everything, not just numbers, they are looking not as wide, but they're looking more deep, right? So, are the things that your child is involved in, is it just a whole bunch of different things where they're just putting things on their brag sheet or they're just putting things on their student resume? Or are they going deep? Are they growing in leadership roles? Are they becoming a captain? Are they becoming first chair, second chair in the band? Are they becoming an officer in the club? Like, how are they growing within what they are doing? Not necessarily having 20 things that you do around the school with no depth, right? And then lastly is the pathways. Just understanding there are a ton of different ways to skin this cat, and success doesn't necessarily mean 4 year university. There are other options for you to be successful and enter into the career that you like. All right. Number three is preparation. This is a very important component, right? So parents, you must shift your do your work to this supports your goal. I kind of alluded to that a little earlier, right? There should be a shift in how you are talking to your college bound child, right? So courses matter in this, right? Specifically, if they are looking to get into something STEM related. Let me give you an example. For engineering, um, they need to be on a math trajectory where they are taking calculus in high school, right? If your child is not on the trajectory to taking calculus in high school, engineering may not be the best option for them because of the rigors of the initial math classes that you have to take in an engineering program, right? Also, so if they're not taking algebra 1 in 8th grade or ninth grade, you still got geometry, trigonometry, you still have pre-cal. So it's you have to really consider what classes or what courses they're taking and kind of juxtapose that to what they want to do, right? Number two, habits matter, right? We want consistent habits for studying, for staying organized, as that executive function I was talking about. We want to make sure they're disciplined. These are the habits that they have to form to be successful. Number three, effort matters. So it's not just about ability. It's really not. I was just talking to a group of students last night. What they didn't know and kind of what they didn't think about was, a lot of valedictorians and salutatorians do very well in high school, but many of them have a hard time transitioning to the college campus, right? Now, they're in classes where everybody was vowels and sals. Maybe they're in an honors college for their courses. Maybe they really didn't have to study in high school. Maybe they were just really talented students. And so they didn't have to study a lot or maybe minimally. And now they're in some of the harder classes on the college campus. There's really more effort that's needed. They really didn't kind of hone those skills. They didn't build those skills. And so, that's something as well that you really want to think about. If your child is a very talented academic student, you really want to make sure that they're building up those other skills. All right. And then time management matters, right? So learning how to balance schoolwork, activities, and personal responsibilities. There's a lesson in being a busy student, to a parent's dismay. There is a lesson to being a busy student, to having a job and being an athlete, having class and taking a dual enrollment or AP or IB course, a little more rigorous course. There's lessons in that. There are skills that they're building up. So we want to make sure that they are doing those things. All right. And the fourth component is going to be decision making, right? So the parent note on this is, parents, please let your student get a lot of practice in choosing, right? This is all about decision making. This entire process is going to end in decision making. So you practice that with small decisions first. So what activities are they interested in? What do they want to try? Things like that. We still have, again, comes back to that executive functioning, right? How can they study right? How can they organize themselves? How can they prepare for assignments? What are they doing to prepare for tests? Things like that, right? Scheduling is also a small decision, right? How can they create space and time for themselves to be successful? How are they not wasting time, essentially? And then their interest, right? Encouraging them to explore some of their interests. That leads to big decisions. You got to have the small wins to get to the big wins. And that's where you kind of think about those courses that they're going to be taking in high school. How does that translate to courses you'll be taking in college? What are the pathways? Is military an option? Military is a phenomenal option to pay for your college education if they can handle the military lifestyle, right? And so that's something to think about as well. And then applying. So how does all of this culminate to the application, admissions, and acceptance processes, major selection when they start, selecting what program of study they're interested in, career selection. These are kind of the big decisions that you'll get to. So I'll ask Ms. Christie, did you see any questions surrounding these four parts of the educational planning process?
I have not seen any questions.
No questions yet?
But I just wanted to reinforce, though, that in the previous slide, when you talked about talking about do your work to this is how it connects to your future goal, I think that is such a shift and so important.
Yes, it's very important. And for some parents, it's pretty difficult, right? And
Right.
so, and so we really want to make sure that parents understand that, right? So it has to connect to a goal. And that's that whole learning the reason why, that shift from teaching a child to teaching an adult. And that's one of the main pillars. That's one of the main transitions, is that knowing why. And so if they can understand the value of why they are doing it, then it's just easier to get that transition for them. Yeah. All right. All right. Next up. So here is where I think you're going to get the most value out of this presentation. Is when the rubber meets the road, it is imperative that you have a conversation with your child about their will and their skill, right? I talked about their interest and aptitude. This is another very important component, their will and their skill, right? Are they willing to do the work if the skill is not there, right? So I'm going to give you a real world example. This is my example, right? This is Brandon's real life example. I am sharing this from my mother's perspective, right? I don't know, hopefully you can see this. I know the words are a little small, but I want to kind of take you through this. And this is kind of the understanding of the educational journey and kind of checkpoints where you may be able to like inform change or, institute change. But for my perspective, in my example, in my life, for my mom, we didn't realize it until it was too late. So here's my real life example, right? So the early indicators, this is from my mom's perspective. My son is taking courses above geometry and is starting to have difficulty. When I was having a really tough time with this trigonometry course. Math wasn't my strongest subject when I was in high school, but I know that I need to get him a tutor, right? So that's kind of a very, I think, common concept for parents when their child might be having difficulty in math. Maybe it's a math higher than the math that you took when you were in school. So, how can you tutor your child if you never took it? That's kind of the situation for my mom. So, as a parent, this is from the parent's role. My role is to provide resources for my child. However, how will this manifest itself later? That is the part that parents or students as well don't really think about. All right. So there's a problem and we're putting a solution to it, but will this manifest in other places? All right. So we'll start with that foundation. Number two, there was minimal exploration of requirements. Right. So my son is interested in becoming a forensic scientist. That's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a forensic entomologist. That is the scientists who study the bugs on dead bodies and to determine like how long that person had been dead. And so that's kind of what I wanted to. I was very interested in that from an anatomy class. But he's interested in becoming a forensic science because he took anatomy course in high school and he loves watching CSI Miami. And his father is currently in law enforcement. So sounds like this is a good plan based on his interest, right? Perfect. Remember, I told you you need two things. You need interest and aptitude, right? Number three, assessing your child's qualities. So I see my son is showing real promise in having skills presenting information, collaborating, he has leadership skills, and he prefers to move around instead of being in one area. But as a parent, what is the role of a scientist? I wonder if this aligns with his skill sets or his career interests, because if I think about it, I believe a scientist generally sits in the lab all day. Could he be successful doing that? Right? Here are the next thing would be forecasting distress. After that, Brandon, I was just reading the course catalog and researching the Bachelor of Science in Forensic Science program. It looks like there is a lot of chemistry in this program. Didn't you decide to take anatomy instead of chemistry while you were a junior in high school? So the first time that you take chemistry is going to be in college. Is that true? That is true. The first time I took chemistry was college chemistry, right? That was a fatal flaw in my educational journey, preparing for college, my college major. Then we had a rubber meets the road moment. My son received a C in his Chemistry 1101 course and failed his Chemistry 1102 course. This is one of the major courses needed to be successful in the forensic science program. So the question as a parent is, can he be successful? Is his confidence shot? Will we need to change majors because he needs these chemistry courses to be successful? Things build on chemistry, right? Lastly, we had to adjust and move forward. So I wonder if we would have researched the requirements of the forensic science program earlier, would we have switched to a different program from the beginning, right? His talents seem to be more aligned with presenting information and educating others. Maybe we should have looked at something that would have been better suited for his strengths. So I have learned about myself. I have a gift of presenting information to students and parents or presenting information anywhere, as long as I understand it, right? And so maybe I should have been majoring in education. Maybe I should have been majoring in something else, right? That was more aligned with my skill sets, right? I had the interest of forensic science. My family owns two funeral homes, so that didn't bother me that there was going to be we were going to be working with dead bodies. That was not a problem for me. There was an interest in it, but I did not have the aptitude in chemistry, right? And so learn from my mistake, learn from my mom's mistake, and understanding kind of what it really takes to be successful in some of the programs that your children may be interested in, right? And understand their will and their skill. So if you're not good at chemistry, and you're not willing to do the things necessary to get better at chemistry, maybe forensic science, maybe pharmacology, it may not be the best majors for you because they are high chemistry, heavy chemistry programs, right? So that's something to think about. All right. Ms. Krista, were there any questions through this real life example of mine?
I have not seen any.
All right, cool. If there are any questions, parents, feel free. Um, ask those questions away. I'll ask Miss Chrissy to just interrupt me when we see something. All right. All right. Next up, the goal isn't to direct every step of your child takes. Is to help them learn how to think through the steps themselves. And again, this is more aligned with just parenting, period, right? You don't want to direct everything that they do. You don't want to have an answer for everything they do. They actually need to figure some of this stuff out on their own because when they get to the college campus, when I was in student affairs, I said, mom, dad, you are a potted plant. This is self advocacy 101. We need to speak with your child. Your child is the adult. And so we don't want you to become that helicopter parent. We don't want you to become that lawnmower parent that's just trying to take all of the obstacles away that's going to be in front of your child. We want them to be able to advocate for themselves and grow through this process as adults as they get ready to enter into their next step of their educational journey. So let's get back to the parents' paradigm shift, right? We're going to start shifting some of your conversations at home. So replace some of these with these. So when you're talking to your child and you say, you need to, try replacing that with, what do you think? Kind of make them start to think through some of their decisions, right? That's not realistic, right? Let's change that to, tell me more about your thing, or what's your school of thought? How are you getting to this conclusion? That's what we want to start thinking, like have them put some skin in the game of their decisions, right? Number 3, I picked this for you. Let's replace that with, let's research this together, because there's a lesson to be learned about dual discovery, right? So figuring it out together kind of gives a little onus to your child. And it also is kind of the backbone of the collaboration part. Number 4, that's not the right college. Although it might not be, let's figure out kind of how they're getting there. So you would replace that with, what do you like about that school? What is it that is making you want to go to that school? This will help inform you of kind of being able to share other aspects that they may or may not be considering. And lastly, you should take this class, right? And you want to replace that with, maybe, how does this class fit with your goals? Again, they are shifting from being taught as a child to being taught as an adult. So they need to have some skin in the game of their decision making, right? And so these are ways, when you are home, these are ways that you can start kind of making small changes to your conversations with them to be able to bring them along in this process. Okay.
So we do have a question,
All right.
and that is, what if they know they want a college education but haven't chosen a field? Is allowing them to start with gen ed okay, or do they have to pick a track? So kind of
Yes.
how's that going? Because I know it's kind of changed over the years a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. You can still enter as a freshman undecided. That's not a problem. Also, some colleges might call that interdisciplinary. So you'll be able to start with your general education courses. The issue, though, is they need to try to pick something at least by the end of their freshman year. The reason why is because for some colleges, I mean, sometimes the second semester of their freshman year, but definitely in their sophomore year, they may begin to start taking major courses, right? And so you don't want to have them applying and enrolling into some courses that they may not need for the track of the course or the degree that they're eventually going to get to, right? So that's you can really see that when they change majors, right? So if you change it from something that's STEM to, let's say, business, a lot of those sciences, those hard sciences that they took, may not be needed for the business track. And so you want to make sure that they're selecting it fairly soon. But the whole part of that exploration is getting them in front of people who are doing that job, doing a lot of research. So when I work with students, I make them interview individuals in that career field. They have to find somebody in that field to get an understanding of what it's like. So not just the what's the day to day, what's the day in the life of a criminal lawyer, right? Like, what does it take to get there? What is it like entering, that courtroom? What is it like having to defend somebody that you know is guilty? What is it like to have to read all of those books and all of those case studies, while you're in law school? What is it like? We heard that first year of law school is like the weed out year. Like, how do you get through that? We really want to be able to show them like what they're getting into. That's kind of like the biggest thing for me in that exploration is this is what you can expect. And I think that if we can let them know what to expect, they'll be better prepared for it, right? You'll have less transferring, you have less changing of majors, you have less of a lot of things that cost time and money because they kind of did their work on the front end, right? All right. Any other questions, Miss Christie?
I haven't seen any other ones.
All right, all right. We are going to continue on. All right, parents, if you are writing notes, this is something I want you to write down. So you need to have a balance as a parent. Students need both support and responsibility. If you control it too much, I do remember a parent saying in the poll that they control the exploration or the journey. They're controlling the process. That leaves your child to be more dependent on you, right? When we are trying to make independent students, independent scholars, independent adults as they get ready to go to that college campus or workforce or military or wherever they're going, right? If you give them too much freedom, if you let them lead the entire thing and you let them have to do all of the work, they may become overwhelmed, specifically those seniors, because that senior year is very busy. So I had a couple of students where mom and dad didn't go to college. And so they didn't know the process. They didn't feel comfortable kind of working that process with the child. So they made their student kind of do everything, even the FAFSA, explore the colleges. It just wasn't something that they had experience with. What that did was that really, really overwhelmed their child. It especially because you have homecoming, you got senior officers, you got prom, you got graduation, you got senior night for whatever activity you're in. If you're in a sport or in a band in a club, you got trips, you got all kind of things, and you have the college application process, the financial aid process. There are a lot of things that high school students are going through. So we want to make sure that we are collaborating with them, right? And so that's called guided equals guided independence, right? Because you're doing it together, but they have some onus, they have some skin in the game, they have some responsibility in this, right? And so I really, really, really want to encourage you to collaborate with your child. Don't lead it, don't follow it. Kind of be side by side with your child as you continue this educational journey. All right. That is your balance as a parent. That is your responsibility, parents, is to make sure you are setting the atmosphere, setting the expectations, setting the parameters, but also going through it with them. Okay. All right. So we're getting to the close to the end. So one of the things I want to make sure that you are not doing is that you can see some of the common pitfalls, some common mistakes that parents make. And if we can kind of shorten your learning curve, then maybe we can shorten your child's learning curve, right? So, common parent mistake number one is planning for instead of planning with. You've heard this probably about 5 times from me today already, right? We want to be in collaboration with your child, right? Instead of leading it, you want to do it with them. Waiting too late. So this is a pretty interesting one because every January, February, I start getting a lot of calls from parents of second semester seniors who were just now figuring out that they want to go to school. So now they're trying to figure out the admissions process and financial aid and all of these things. And that you are very late at this point in time, right? And so we want to make sure that you are building this plan now, specifically for those sophomore parents who are on this call. Let's go ahead and start building this out. What I'm learning, and here's an example right now. I told you I have a daughter. She's 7, and we're looking at how are we going to build an education fund for her, right? And so if we could get a 529 plan or an IRA, and we just put some money in, if we would put some money in when she was born, then we would have had 7 years of like compound interest. What I'm telling you is that as a sophomore parent on this call, you have the most time, right? You have the most time to build this out. If you're a junior or senior parent, you don't have that much time. So let's build out what we can build out and explore what we can explore and create opportunities for as many opportunities as we can so that we can make informed decisions, right? Number 3 is comparing students. So please don't compare them to their friends who may look like they have it together, or their older or younger siblings, because they may look like they have it together. With some of my scholars that I had, I just knew my conservative, quiet, methodical scholar was going to be way further in the decision making than my free spirited, want to explore everything scholar that I just had, right? And so they are two different scholars in personality and how they approach things. But honestly, the free spirited scholar got to their answer a lot quicker than that quiet, conservative, thinking, methodically thinking student, right? And so that was pretty interesting for me to see, right? And so I want to make sure that you aren't comparing your child to any other child, right? Number 4, focusing on grades only, right? So in a holistic approach to admissions, they're looking at, obviously your academic courses and the rigor of their courses, their test scores, but they're also looking at letters of recommendation. They're also looking at extracurricular activities. They're also looking at essays. They're also looking at all of these other things, the whole student. And so your student is not kind of just dwindled down to like a few grades, a number. There are other aspects of them. And so we want to make sure that we're exploring opportunities for the entire scholar, right? And then lastly, only discussing school when problems happen, right? So if their grades are slipping, that's the only time we're talking about kind of their future. When things aren't going well, that's kind of when we're starting to talk about it. But we need to praise them as well, show them that there are a parent who's behind them, who's cheerleading them behind them. And so that's also something you want to make sure that you are being mindful of, is kind of how and when you are engaging with your child for their educational journey. Hmm? Here's our last slide. So the long-term outcomes when you plan, when you collaborate, and when you hold your child accountable is they will think independently. They'll begin to advocate for themselves because they've kind of built those skill sets up. They'll make informed decisions because you've done the research, you've collaborated. They'll recover from mistakes quicker, and they'll better navigate adulthood, right? Because they've been able to go on this journey with you. So this is what I want to make sure that you are doing as a parent. planning, collaborating, and holding them accountable. So if you didn't write anything else down for this presentation, your goals as a parent as it relates to educational journey is to make sure you are planning with them, you are collaborating with them, and you are holding them accountable. Okay? All right. You can get more information about the resources from College Readiness 101, including our online parent university, our Student Success Academy, based on the grade level that they're in, and the workbooks for those who are maybe not be digital learners. They may want something to open up and write in. All right. As I always do, I'm going to ask you, parents, if you don't mind, would you let me know, did you find this building a collaborative education plan session valuable? Did you learn something? Was it worth coming to? Would you come again? What are your thoughts about this? All right, all right. I see some agrees.
And a strongly agree or two or
I
three.
strongly agree. All right, all right.
And we appreciate you, Brandon.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'm here for you. I am here for you. We will open up a Q&A session. Miss Christie, I'll ask, was there any questions? Parents, if you have any questions, go ahead and type it in chat. This is a dedicated time to get your questions answered. Were there any questions beforehand, Miss Christie? If not, this is the time for that.
I have not seen any questions, but the one thing you mentioned at the beginning that you would come back to was around motivating the student. So did you?
Yes. Yes, thank you
So
so
that'll
much.
give people time to think of their other questions a while.
Yes. All right. So this all stems from, I'm so glad we were able to set the foundation for this topic in relating to, again, we're going to talk about transitioning from that teaching a child to teaching an adult, that understanding the why behind it, right? Students have to understand or have to see the value proposition in what they are doing, right? You are going to see that more and more as they get older, right? What I ended up seeing on the college campus, how that manifested on the college campus is when I was in school, when I was getting ready to go to school, my mom and I, my dad and I, we were fiends for information. We were going to try to go to every college fair. We wanted to go to every meet and greet, every opportunity we were looking for. When I got on the college campus, the child changed, the student changed. Now we're providing really important information, but they're not there unless you're providing them with a snack or you're feeding them or there's some type of gift cards that are coming out. What is the motivation, right? They didn't see the value proposition in the information, right? And so what I have learned in some ways when motivating a child is one, there needs to be, if that's how they are, there may need to be some type of incentive. I hate to incentivize students for giving them information that they need to have, but in some cases that may be the case. But in other cases, we need to kind of change their paradigm and understanding that there is a value in what we are doing. They actually need to see it. So the best lessons are learned in blood, sweat, and tears, right? And so when they see, some money associated with their decisions, right? If you do this, we can get to this opportunity for scholarships. That may be enough for your car for your freshman year, right? If you don't have a car. If they can see difficulty in somebody's life who's older because they made a different decision on the track or the trajectory you're trying to put them on, right? There may be a lesson in that, right? If they are able to see opportunities for classmates, friends, siblings, because they put the work in, right? There are opportunities for that. There becomes by osmosis, I believe, they will start to see the value in what they are trying to do. Now, again, it's very tough. And parents, I'm not going to tell you, how to parent your child, right? You know your child way better than anybody else. But I think that there is a paradigm shift that has to happen. But if they are not motivated, it's because they don't see the value in what we are talking about or what you are talking about. All right. Hopefully that answers. Hopefully that helps.
I think it does. Different ways to think about what's going to motivate that particular student.
Yeah.
We do have another question that just came in. Every school my child is discussing is way costly. How do I be supportive without being negative about the cost, which is way beyond our means?
Right. So there's going to be a rubber meets the road moment. So in our first session, I told you um, your child has to do what they can to help their parents pay for their college education, or they're going to go to the college their parents can afford. Right. That is financially what's going to happen. And so the thing is when I work with students and they're interested in some of the very expensive schools, Spelman's and Morehouses here in Atlanta, or they're interested in the Howards in DC, if they're looking for HBCUs. A lot of them are looking for some of the Ivy Leagues, and don't qualify for some of the resources, the kind of the newer resources that the Ivy Leagues are providing. And so there happens to be a moment in time where there's a rubber meets the road conversation where you have to help me pay for this college or you're not going to be able to go to this college. It's going to have to be a true conversation because I am not a proponent of going to school and getting loans to pay for a degree just for the sake of getting a degree. We have to be more savvy consumers of higher education. So, what other options are there for you in our area, or maybe in other states, that makes sense? It has to be the best fit for you and the household, right? And so, and going to college campuses and falling in love with them, but it's too expensive. Um, we need to really have that conversation either on the way home or over dinner or something. There has to be some skin in the game and an understanding that they have some control on if they're able to go to ABC college, right? And if they're not, here are some alternative options, especially if the school is not known for the program that they're interested in, right? So I say all the time, I wouldn't suggest students go to Georgia Tech and major in education, right? There are maybe some other reputable education programs at a lower price point. Georgia Tech is known for STEM and business, right? So we want to make sure that we wouldn't pay Georgia Tech's tuition for a program that you could probably get anywhere, right? And so we have to start really making like business decisions on that. So I'm hoping that helps in understanding that. I'm hoping that helps to be able to guide that child.
I think the
I see
importance of
Mashak come to get a job. I understand.
yeah. There
That's
are work
absolutely
study
true.
programs too.
Yep, and work study when they get on campus. But the thing is, and what I don't want to happen to you, and it's a common thing, and I'm hoping none of the parents here and none of the students who you're parents of fall into this situation. Many students will do the work to get the scholarships to pay for a college for their freshman year, and then they slack on it, or they can't find the funding for year two or year three. And that's really like a major issue for the student who we say you got to apply to 50 to 75 scholarships, and they apply to 10, right? And they may get one, they may get zero, right? Scholarships is a numbers game. Like, what effort are you putting in? What can you do? How are you helping your parent pay for a college education? So I really want you as a parent, when thinking about funding your child's college education, to think about year two, three, and four, not just year one. Can you get in for year one for an expensive school? Maybe. But what is that gap going to look like for year two, three, and four? So hopefully that helps.
I think the person responded that it does. So
Okay.
good.
All
We
right.
do have another question here. Do you think it's a smart decision to work for a job that you can learn the proper training while on the job and save money from attending an expensive college?
I, if I understand that correctly, that is joining the workforce, do I need to go to school for something I can learn in the
On the
field?
job.
All right,
Right.
cool, cool. I think for that question, that's a really good question. I would say it is based on the goal, based on your child's goal, right? So I used to recruit students for state schools and for for-profit career schools. And so the difference in those two types of students, their profiles, is one was trying to get the traditional experience, and one was trying to get into the workforce quicker, right? So it would be maybe a medical assistant program or a medical billing and coding program, or maybe like a sonography program to do ultrasounds was kind of the programs that were kind of premier for what I was recruiting for. And so that medical assistant program was like a 9 month program where you can get into the field, or you could go to a technical school and go through a medical assistant program for like 2 years, and you got to take some of those general ed courses. So it's really the goal, right? Do they want to enter into the workforce as quick as possible, without hopefully without a lot of student loans, or a lot of educational expenses? That is an option, right? And it might be the right option for some students. Does your child need the the college experience, not just academics, right? So college is not just about academics. It's about experiences. There are some social and emotional lessons you learn. There are some persistence lessons that you learn. There are some lessons in being a broke college student, right? That you may not learn in other aspects, or other options. Um, do they need it? Are they mature enough to be quote unquote an adult right now, right? So you really have to think about what is their goal and who are they as a person. Financially, it makes total sense for me to say, yes, you don't have to go to school. You can find this job, a trade job. Let's take like HVAC for example. HVAC technicians make a lot of money, right? You don't necessarily have to be in school for 4 years for that, right? That is a great option and is a great way to enter into a career. But I think that you have to consider like your child, what experiences are they looking for, and are they going to be kind of that blue collar workforce, like student, adult. Like, we really have to figure out like who they are as a person. So that's what I would say to you is let's figure out what the goal is and then determine kind of which way we can go. So you kind of reverse engineer it.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And, when you think about kind of more HVAC just struck a chord for me because a friend, her son, wanted to go to college, but was interested in HVAC. So actually ended up going to Thaddeus Stevens, which is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which does more of those trade type things, but
Mhm.
still provides a somewhat traditional college experience. So,
Okay, okay, yeah, that's
so
great.
I think
Mhm.
your point of what's important to the student and what's their goal, really plays out into that as well.
Yeah.
So I have seen no other questions come in. Um,
Okay.
so I'm going to do the closing, unless you have like another, do you have a closing that
It
you
was
do
just
want
a
to?
just a reminder that our last session is going to be our parent panel. You won't want to miss that because I'll have people from all different components of the higher education experience, to be able to answer your questions. I think the last one is just my contact information. So there it is. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. You can learn more about College Readiness 101, through these through my contact information. So we have that.
Great. So the next webinar that Brandon alluded to is on March 25th at 6:30. And if you have specific questions that you want to make sure get answered, you're welcome to email them to Amber Kelly. And her email address I just put in the chat for everyone. So you can send her those and then she'll compile them all and send them to Brandon in preparation. The other thing is, if you, whoops, if I hit the right button here. If you could take a moment, either this evening or when you get that email, to let us know what you thought about tonight's session and also what other topics you would be interested in. We do look at that in our planning to see what makes a lot of sense, based on what people are interested in. So again, thank you for joining us and have a good evening.
Thank you so much. I'll
All
see
right.
you in 2 weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks, Brandon. Good night, everyone.